Well, hello, good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the Storytime Talk Show. As we always share, our stories are kind of like those bonds that tie us together. Many times in life, we find ourselves thinking that our story isn't significant, or we replay things in our mind that say, what I went through didn't matter. But the truth is, our stories really define us. And when we let them, they will be the hope, the inspiration, and the joy that somebody else is waiting for because they're in the middle of their story. Well, friends, my special guest today is Victoria Nelson. And wow, she has a story. We met through this amazing networking organization called Hey ATX. Hopefully, we'll be interviewing a lot more people from the Hey ATX community. But we got to meet because she was intrigued about story time. And I spent some time with her, learned about her story, and I wanted her to be on this show here with you. So, welcome, Victoria. So excited to have you with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here. Driving out to Taylor, Texas is not always an easy thing, but it's so fun. And I'm honored when somebody does. Victoria, there were so many things as you and I talked on the phone, and I got to learn a little bit about you. Of course, when I first meet somebody online, I want to know, like, what are they doing in life? And I noticed that you have a cleaning business, and I love that entrepreneurship spirit and the ability to just get out there and make things happen. And then, of course, we get on the phone and I learn about some of the things that you have overcome and some of the things that you're still currently working through and dealing with. And I thought, wow, she's an entrepreneur. She has a very physical business. She is a like a physical trainer, all of these amazing things. And she has this little condition called scoliosis, right? And a pretty severe case. So I was just mind blown to hear about how you have not necessarily taken that as a badge that held you back, but you've literally propelled yourself forward and you are beating a lot of odds. So share with us a little bit about yourself. And gosh, I'm so excited to have you today.
Thank you again. Yes, man, one of the most scariest things I went through and also the most comforting is I had just turned 13,
Okay.
about to have back surgery, about to have my spine fused,
Wow.
2 rods and screws put against it to correct it, because it was so severe that was starting to crush my organs.
Oh my goodness.
And I was about to walk down to the operating room, and my dad was with me. It was just me and my dad.
Mm.
And I said, "Dad, I'm really scared." And he said, "It's okay, baby. I love you. I'll be
Mm.
right out here when you get out."
Mm.
And gives me a kiss.
Aw. Well, here I am thinking, okay, I'm a mom of 3, and 2 that I personally raised and birthed. I cannot imagine what that pain would look like. Number one, from the perspective of your dad, like your child is getting ready to walk into a very hard surgery. But also, I was 13 at one point, and the biggest thing I probably had to deal with at 13 fear-wise was probably a shot of some sort, right? Like a vaccination or something
Yeah.
like that. I cannot imagine. And so tell me a little bit about so 13 years old, you already it was severe enough that you had to have this amazing surgery to go through. Tell me a little bit about like the young Victoria. Like, where did this start, and how did you even find out? Like, what growing pains and things like that you dealt with?
Yeah, definitely. So it started in school, where they do the checks. They just look briefly at your spine.
Okay.
That's how we found out. And I went to just the regular doctor and, was diagnosed. And we went back in 3 months. And it was already so bad that I had to be referred to a specialist. And let me correct myself there. I said bad. It was severe enough to be referred to a specialist, and started from there and had to be put on a waiting list.
Mm.
And They fitted me for a brace to see if that would help.
Mhm.
It didn't do anything because it was already my rib cages were already caving in,
Wow.
and, because your scoliosis is where your spine can twist and, um, can compress the organs and
Wow.
ribs,
Right.
and I was a pretty active kid. I did basketball in elementary school, would run around outside with my little brother a lot, with my big brother, and
Mm.
yeah, it's amazing that I wasn't very scared leading up to the surgery until right before.
Sure, sure. Well, you just probably had that moment of, "Okay, this is it, like, I'm going in," right?
Yeah.
You just did something which I appreciated, when you corrected your words, and we're gonna talk about correcting words and thinking and all of that
Yeah.
later. Tell me about, your feeling on the power of the words that you use, because you corrected yourself from saying it was really bad to it was severe. So tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about your mindset around that.
Yes. That's a whole discussion.
Yeah.
I moved here to Texas from Wyoming 7 years ago, and slowly after that started learning more and more about how our minds work.
Mm,
And especially within the last, let's say, 4 years, and how what we are told and what we tell ourselves
mhm.
affects our minds,
Right.
and really learn the impact on language, and learn that nothing has to be good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is.
Sure.
And, well, who says it's bad? Who says it's good?
Mm,
Who says?
mm. Sure. I can totally see that, right? Our conditioning, our programming, our belief patterns that we pick up through life. And so if you don't mind, I would love for, since we're in this lane already, what were some of the belief patterns that you were exposed to as, okay, again, 13 years old, I have two brothers, one younger, one older. Um, they probably didn't, I'm assuming they didn't have the same condition. Did they have the same
No.
condition? Okay. I have brothers, and they were not bullies, but they horse played and, all of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
things. And when somebody doesn't understand the severity of your condition, it's very hard to have empathy, right?
Mhm.
And so I can only imagine kind of some of the dynamics, but I would love to hear from you. What were some of the dynamics growing up in a house with boys, with this condition, with the desire to play sports, the desire to be physically active, and all of those things? What were some of the feelings, beliefs, and what did that look like in your home?
Yeah, it started off very difficult,
Mm,
and something I had to learn to overcome, like, about the language we use and the words and what we're listening to and telling ourselves,
mm,
because, um, my brothers were very knowledgeable about it and protective,
good.
and my dad would now he was very wrapped up in some fear and
Mm,
very protective over his little girl,
mhm.
bless his heart, and would use the words, "Don't lift that, you're weak."
Ah, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I carried that on as true
Sure.
for years, and, it took me getting into the gym and, like, a lot of weightlifting, I think, to start to drill that into my head that I'm strong,
Mm,
and I don't live by what other people tell me.
mm.
And I remember sending my dad a video of me deadlifting.
Wow.
I tell him, "Bet you didn't think your baby girl could do that, did you?"
Aw.
He said, "No, I didn't, but keep going."
Aw. How did that feel to hear that?
Whew, it was another defining moment of, oh, okay, well, thank you, first of all, and
Yeah.
I will keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm glad you spoke about a third party fear. A lot of times we pick up beliefs, we pick up words, we pick up patterns from people, and we don't know why, especially when I think about from a 13-year-old's perspective. Like our viewpoint on life is so narrow, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't know what's going on outside of what we can see and what we can feel. And even that is probably a little mixed up because most people at 13 are going through hormones and we're going
Mhm.
through
Mhm.
all the fear. We're going through middle school for the love of all
Mhm.
things, right? And so it's hard to see that what somebody is speaking to you, they're speaking it through the lens of what they see,
Yes.
right? And so your
And what they
dad
went through.
and what they went through
Mhm.
and their fears of, oh my God, I have to protect this baby. I've got to do everything. And, as a mom myself, there have been plenty of times where I have been like, no, let me handle that for you, my kid, right? Let
Yeah.
me pick that up. And because I know I'm strong enough to handle it. Like I know I haven't died yet, right? But I maybe don't know that you can't in your tenderness. And you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of times there's that fear that's projected out, but
Mhm.
from that place of being 13, you don't see any of that. You don't understand it. And so
Mhm.
we literally pick up somebody's words, actions, or responses, and we put our own frame around it. And so to hear something like your dad say, well, I'm proud of you, probably just shifted everything in your mind that maybe you thought, I don't know what you thought, but there's a lot of other thoughts. I'll tell you, there was a story one time, and I had this conversation with my dad, so I don't have a problem saying it. Hi, Dad. Hope you're watching. Uh, where we had purchased my dad's business several years back, and something in me felt really bad about the circumstances that surrounded what led us to purchasing his business. There was a situation that was super unfortunate, an injury that happened. And as a result, my husband and I were able to purchase the business and support them and support us. And it ended up being really good. But in me, there was almost this fear that I was going to hurt him. And it was such a weird fear. It doesn't even make any sense
Mhm.
whatsoever, but such a weird fear that I didn't want him to it literally held us back from going, like, all out in business because I didn't want to affect something. I didn't even know what it was, and so we didn't go all in business. That's all I'm gonna say. So I had this conversation with him one day, and I said, "Dad, I just want you to know that, that I'm so grateful and that I love you, and this is something that's been on my heart, and I hope that I wanna just share it with you." And I told him, I said, "I feel like maybe if we do too much in business, it might make you feel bad about the loss associated with the company." And he looked at me probably very much the way that your dad responded to you and said, "Oh my God, like I want you to do so good. Like I am so proud of you." And it shifted everything. So, in moments like that, I would just want to tell our audience members or people that are watching, or even in this conversation, to just say communication and expressing that is literally the bridge that can cover that gap so that we can get true back to the real truth about how somebody is feeling versus what we're interpreting their feelings to
Mhm.
be. And
Yeah.
it can be life changing.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for doing that. I had a hard time sometimes doing that with my dad before he passed. He passed 5 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And you mentioned when we're 13, when we're that young, our minds are very narrow because
Mm.
it's taken me 20 years after my back surgery to fully start to understand and to even process
Mm,
everything that was happening with my body,
sure.
with my parents, with home, with me, with my mind, and then finally starting to realize, like, hey, it's okay to like grieve. This is something really major I went through, and I'm still going through it every day.
Mm,
And I mean, I'm walking. It's a miracle because it was starting to crush my organs. I
wow.
was going to go crippled, and that's more than what we can say for a lot of people. And
Sure.
also, we people, us that can, me for the most part, because for the most part, I do live a normal life, and people that can walk like normal, we do take advantage of it
Sure.
every day.
Yeah. There's so many things that we take for granted and take advantage of. It's sad, right? And sometimes we need reality checks to help
Mhm.
us. I'm not asking for them. I'm not asking for them. But sometimes we need those reminders, and we need those stories, and we need to see things from a different lens to give us that paradigm shift and to wake us up to what is available. And that leads me to my next question for you, which is, okay, so there's this journey that, again, in as you just alluded to, you go through the motions, and so many times in life we go through this terribly traumatic situation. Maybe it's scoliosis, maybe it's trauma, from what somebody said, or an event, or a sexual event, or maybe our traumas are not comparable because we
Yeah.
own them on our own, right?
Yeah.
But you go through the event, you survive the event,
Mhm.
and in just the kind of the basic human will, we bury it back in our subconscious mind,
Mhm.
and we don't think about it until, maybe for you more frequently than some, because yours was physical. Maybe you feel it more often physically in your body.
Mhm.
If it's a emotional trauma, like I had, it's an emotional trigger that pops up, but we get triggers all the time, right?
Yeah.
At what point, Victoria, do you feel like you came to this place that you said, okay, I'm going to take you out of that back filing cabinet section of my mind, and I think it's time to deal with this?
Man, again, that's a big question because we could go hours and hours all day talking about that.
Sure.
And I don't know that it was one like moment of, okay, there's something here that we have to deal with. It's more of like reoccurring events, reoccurring like patterns, reoccurring physical and emotional mental pain
Sure.
of, okay, this may not be just physical. This there was a lot of stress that went on.
Mm,
And I love that you brought up the subconscious mind because things do get buried in that until we notice, okay, it's safe to let it out.
mhm,
Let's start dealing with this and healing from it.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. I think you mentioned reoccurring things. For me, one of the things that would happen when I came to that place that I said, I've got to deal with this, is I kept feeling like I was running into walls. Now, I am
Mhm.
a vision person. I get visions about things
Yeah.
often, and so I could visually see a wall I was running into. And now I could see it, but I would feel it. I would feel it in relationships. I would feel it in business. I would feel it like,
Mhm.
I can't get past this level, and that barrier essentially is what made me say, all right, I've got to do something else. That's when I led into my be still moment. That's when, life started to shift for me. And I did what Carl Jung said to do. He said, those who look outside dream, but those who look inside awaken. And
Mm.
that's when I came to the place of saying, okay, I need to wake up to what's going on here, because until
Mhm.
I deal with this, nothing out there is going to work properly, because everything we touch is a reflection of who we are, right?
Yes.
So I love how you talked about that. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of the in between. So we're 13 now. You said 20 years post surgery. So
Mhm.
what happened? And then you said your healing journey kind of started about 4 years ago. I think that's what I understood. Is that correct? when you started kind
4
of
years ago
unpacking?
is when I started healing more my mindset and
Okay.
learning more about mindset, yes.
Okay, perfect. So talk about that 16-year period. Tell us a little bit about like what was going on in that time.
Well, a lot of narrow thinking, a lot of just going through the motions, a lot of just trying to get by, trying to survive with this, this physical disability that in ways I was letting define me and limit myself. And I just noticed how much life has to offer and how much
Mm,
fun I had just with little things and being able to go to the gym almost every day and lift weights and, you know, e- experience love and to experience connection.
mm,
And there was a lot of, again, subconscious patterns of, one day waking up, why am I in so much pain? Why does it hurt like this after, moving here to Texas? And
mm,
I thought it was just stress. And it turns into so many other things of healing trauma, healing physically, and noticing, okay, this thing I'm doing physically isn't helping. Let's try something else.
mm,
And yeah, it was a lot of just going through a lot of things, a lot of stress, a lot of feeling alone, a lot of different people walking in and out of my life.
mm,
And, um, a lot of the physical pain, a lot of the mental pain, I would get this nudge. And whenever I was in
mm.
victim mode of why me?
Sure.
Why do I get this severe scoliosis and this nudge, this voice, this vision of helping people, of speaking to people, of encouraging them, of because I'm meant to help other people and to inspire them.
Mm,
And because, like you said earlier, we connect through our stories.
mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, connection is a huge thing. And just encouraging someone on the most minor thing, but to
Mm.
them, it's huge. You may end up saving a life one day.
I can physically, emotionally, mentally, right? Those we are three in one. We were created that way. And you mentioned physical pain and the mental pain that probably came along with that, and emotional pain, I'm sure. Um, and you talked about saving a life. Well, sometimes the life that we save is the physical body, right? By
Hmm.
by nourishment, by support, by
Yes.
teaching things.
Yes.
But it's usually not separate from the emotional and the
Yes.
mental side and the
It's all
spiritual
one.
side. Yes,
Hmm.
we are all one. So as you started kind of developing that, and as you started, I'm assuming gratitude must have had to be part of the journey.
Yes, yes, a lot of gratitude. Again, how I said I can walk, and not only I can walk, I do things like deadlift, and used to be my favorite thing, and
Yeah.
go for long walks and things that people would never even think about having the desire to do. And
Sure.
one of my favorite sports is also bowling. And even though it gets me a little sore, yeah, I'm still gonna go. I still love it. And um gratitude, yes, gratitude for, oh my gosh, the amazing doctors.
Mm,
Now, thankfully, I've learned the lessons of being on both of those sides, of experiencing
mm,
some not so great doctors and
mhm,
also some amazing ones. And so grateful that I had amazing surgery. He was a surgeon that went to other countries, underdeveloped countries, and
wow.
performed surgeries on underprivileged kids. And
Wow.
yeah, went to Utah to be treated.
Okay.
If you're in that area of Northwest area, go to Utah. Some of the best doctors there.
Wow. Is that where you're from?
From Wyoming,
Okay.
but we would go to Utah because it was so close and the doctors there were better than the ones in Wyoming, so we just chose to go to Utah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing we didn't prepare to talk about this, but I think it might be helpful for somebody that's listening. One of the things that seems to happen often when somebody has a debilitating diagnosis is, well, two things I want to explore with you. Number one is how we a lot of times associate ourselves or pick up the identity of a diagnosis.
Mhm.
You mentioned the victim mindset,
Yeah.
but also it could be the patient mindset or the, however you might word that. So I'd love to get into that. But I also would love to get into the other thing that a lot of times people deal with, and we experience this with my husband, when you have a traumatic event on your body,
Mhm.
that one of the biggest responses that we find from the medical field is medication,
Mhm.
prescription drugs,
Mhm.
pain medication, things like that, that don't actually deal with the physical situation. They just,
Mask it.
hopefully mask the pain. Yes.
Mhm.
So, can you tell us a little? I'm assuming you've probably had to experience both of those pieces. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I can tell you, yes, especially when, some of these drugs in some situations are non-avoidable, like when you have to have a major surgery like that,
Sure.
of course. And there's also times like when I was going through depression and I chose to be on antidepressants and then came to this light bulb, if you will, of I don't want to be dependent on
Mm,
taking this pill every day
mhm,
to make me feel good or make me feel like I can just survive and get by.
mm,
And I was also, again, thankfully, and I say thankfully because we have to go through these unfortunate, hard lessons to learn, okay, not for me, something that's not gonna help. This other thing is way better because
sure.
I was just experiencing a lot of stomach pain, a lot of stomach issues, and when
Associated with medication or
yes,
okay.
mhm,
Mm,
and when I got off of it, they went away, and I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting."
mm, yeah.
And so I'm a big advocate for natural healing,
Mhm,
natural thinking, I 100% believe that our bodies, our souls, our minds are our best healers.
mhm, mhm. So, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the maybe rituals or practices that you do to really recenter yourself? I mean, I'm assuming the pain isn't fully gone, that you still have moments that you deal with, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you recenter yourself and what does that process look like?
It sometimes it looks different
Mm,
depending on the cause of it and it's where it's coming from. And the interesting thing about as severe as the scoliosis was is my muscles are pulling from each other. So
mhm,
they didn't adapt to the surgery. My bones did, the muscles didn't. And so I'm actually about to work with a physical therapist that does what's called the Schroth method. I
okay.
believe it was developed by a German lady, and it works on the muscle memory and works on a lot of mobility and flexibility. And I really started to experience natural healing by just people here and reading different things and people I would care for. I
Mm,
was in the caregiving space and you know, realizing being very much more in tune with my body.
mhm,
So there's a number of things. There's yoga, which has really helped. Sometimes just walking and, you know, the simplest things go a long way.
mm,
I do stretch a lot, a
okay.
lot, a lot, and that really helps. I do meditate, and with meditation and rest, shortly after moving here, I was very in the go, go, go
Mm,
state, the
mhm,
hustle state, and
sure.
I was working so hard and I had to learn to slow down and to give my body rest and to quiet my mind too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, our minds can go a mile a minute and on all these different directions. And one of my favorite things that I've picked up over the years and really just listening to what my pastor says, he talks about meditation and he says, literally, we are all meditating all the time. It's just a matter of what are you meditating on? Are we meditating on the things that we want to bring into our life? Or are we meditating on the things that are feeding, you know, those limitations, those beliefs, those pain pieces, right? It used to drive me crazy when my husband would say, it's all in your head, until I realized it literally was in my head. Like, you know, because so much of if I have an ache about something and my mind focuses just on that ache, it literally magnifies it.
Yes.
Right. And so I think, you know, one of my favorite scriptures is take all thoughts captive and put them into submission under the accordance of the word of God. But essentially, take our thoughts captive because our thoughts will take us places. And are those places fruitful? Are they going to be healthy for us? Are they going to help us and serve us? Or are they going to put us on a path of destruction or pain? Yeah.
Our thoughts can take us to the darkest place or they can take us to the brightest place. It's just which one do you want to choose?
Right. Right. It's like the story of the two wolves, right? The one, you know, which wolf is going to survive? The one you feed, right? I totally messed up that story, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. We've got two hungry wolves. Which one's going to survive? The one you feed. And that's how our mind works. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the title of today's talk, and I have just loved this conversation, but the title of today's talk is Resilient Spine, Resilient Mind. And I think that's so beautifully worded. And I love your word choice in that. And that really encapsulates what we're talking about today. But tell us a little bit about what your belief on that is.
Thank you for asking. Again, it's been a huge kind of long journey, if you will. And again, it's just taken different trials, different lessons, different people speaking wisdom into me and finally deciding to listen.
Sure.
And to listen to my body, to what my body needs. And, you know, I had an amazing friend back home that taught me everything I know in the gym and would lift with me all the time. And he would tell me, you know, Victoria, doctors would tell you to never do this stuff. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And I slowly learned that, you know, doctors or people of authority, take it with a grain of salt and don't be afraid to question it or get second opinions and listen to your body. Again, we are our best healers. And so back to your question of, you know, am I going to let what the doctors say define me or what the doctors may tell me not to do? And even just their energy too of, you know, I'm treating this patient with this kind of diagnosis. And, you know, going back to things my dad was speaking to me, I wanted so badly to prove him wrong. I wanted so bad to prove myself to him and to the world,
right,
that I was capable and that I could physically do these things I wanted to do. And then I learned that, you know, it was myself against myself needing to prove that. And that's why I tell listeners, if you get a diagnosis, that doesn't define you. What we believe about ourselves defines us. Now, that can also be a scary thing because you mentioned thoughts. It can take us to a dark place.
Right.
So whatever you're thinking about yourself, if that's nothing but what we were programmed with or negativity, then that's where it's going to lead to. And if we use our lessons to help people, or if we use it to help ourselves,
Mm.
then again, what we believe about ourselves is true. That's what defines us.
Right.
And if you have a condition, whether it's scoliosis or whether it's cancer, we don't have to let that take us down. There's so much to live for. And also, it would be selfish of us to let it get us down. There's more people than we realize that are affected by our well-being.
Right. That's really well put. And you're right. And there's people that need to hear your story. And there's people that need to know, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. Right. If she can find freedom in it, then I can do it too. And I think, that is definitely one of the the anthems, the messaging that we want to get out to listeners and to those that follow us on the Unbreakable Life journey and through story time and through our books and all of those things. That is the message. But a lot of people struggle with, okay, great, but how do I start? And, as you mentioned, you found some people that were able to pour wisdom into you. And of course, there was doctors, there was probably NLP practitioners or life coaches or somebody that was able to support you from
Yes.
that place. Some of us have churches and things like that. But the real work a lot of times starts with shutting off all the noise, learning to be still, like you talked about, like we talked about before the show. And that is a process. And that is a
Yes.
very intentional, like compartmentalized, like I have to shut all of that off on purpose with intention to own my body. Like I can't, it's so funny now that I have gotten much healthier. Thank you to my doctor, Dr. Val. I love you. And thank you, honey, for letting me get that done. But I learned through working with a naturopath doctor, just like you said, natural healing, that my body needs to be honored and served and fed and nurtured a very specific way, not a general way, a very specific way for optimal health.
Yes.
Right. Not substandard health, right?
Yes.
But optimal health.
Yeah.
And that was a process, when somebody wants to get healing, emotionally healing, there's a process and there's people that can help you overcome trauma, overcome certain types of events, maybe therapists, things like that. That's also what our Unbreakable Life journey helps with too. We start with self-discovery because usually we're so focused on what everybody else is doing and maybe people pleasing and all of those things. Like I was a people pleaser. I literally just talked about how I allowed my people pleasing tendency, which by the way, was not even accurate.
Yeah.
About how I thought my dad felt.
Yeah.
It wasn't even accurate and it was holding me back. Like stupid Theresa. I had to learn that lesson, right? And I say that jokingly. I would never call myself stupid. But the truth is it was a poor decision made based on a dwarfed belief that had no foundation. And so learning to get still and learning self-discovery and all those things are a part of the process. So I wanted to just share that with listeners today that, you can hear amazing stories like Victoria's, which is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. And I love, you're making me want to sit up straighter. And you talked about taking advantage of things. I'm like, am I taking advantage of my back right now? But you can hear these beautiful stories. But the hope is that you look through the lens of your own life now and you say, okay, what do I need to learn about me so that I can reach that marathon moment of that deadlift that Victoria reached, right? How can I reach that moment? How can I get to that place, whether it's emotional, mental, or physical? So as we wrap up today, what is a piece of advice or a word of encouragement, or you pick, and this is your show. What would you like to be the message that our viewers take home today?
There's so many things. Like I mentioned before, A diagnosis does not define you.
Yeah.
What we believe about ourselves defines you. And do the work to heal. Trust the process. Be patient. Be patient with yourself. Most of all, give yourself grace. That's where it starts. And it's a painful process. It's worth it. You're going to be so proud of yourself. And I actually have a gym shirt that says, not always easy, but always worth it.
Yeah.
And even I have to remind myself of that. And you mentioned coaches, and I just have met so many amazing people upon moving here. And I really just want people to educate themselves. Don't just live your life of getting by health wise.
Sure.
I'm eating a salad, so that made up for the ice cream I ate last night, or the walk I went on. Really get to the depths of what it means for you and your body to heal, to be healthy. What does that mean for you? Because it really does look so different for all of us. And also, I mentioned my dad passed away 5 years ago. And I've learned so much from my relationship with him and from his passing, and be so grateful for the love that they give you, even if it's not the way that you wanted it or hoped for.
Sure.
And I come to understand my dad and give him a lot of compassion, because man, once we even just hear other people's stories of what our parents went through in their day and age, and how rough it was on them, then we understand. And my partner, bless his heart, told me about how rough it can be out working in the oil rigs, and that's the work my dad did. And when he told me how rough it was, I was like,
that explains a lot.
That's why Dad would come home so grumpy and tired, and he was just out trying to provide for 8 kids.
Wow.
And yes, and
Wow.
bless my dad's heart. And your parents are doing the best they can with what they have.
Right.
And spend every moment you have with them. Just connect with them on love, on whatever bright thing you can use to connect with them, even if it's just watching football. And be so grateful for still having them. And again, my dad's passing taught me a lot. And it definitely taught me right after he passed that, okay, I must make sure people go down a happier and healthier path than what he did. Right. And also, give them grace, and to be grateful for having them in your life. And they really are doing the best they can. And I come to understand him more and more, and be so grateful of what we shared together and everything he taught me. And he would shake his finger at me down, don't ever forget whose daughter you are. I'm like, well, how could I, Dad?
Yeah, you could tell he was proud. Yeah,
he
just
was
hearing
very,
it through your story.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's really special. And I completely understand a lot of those feelings. We said goodbye to my mom about 2 years ago. And I think I really believe that that's one of the reasons we are so determined with the Unbreakable Life journey to
Yes.
help people, because we saw, the effects of, yes, access to healthcare, but
Yeah.
was it good healthcare? Was
Mhm.
it what she really needed to maximize, and did she have the resources? So anyway, I can completely understand and empathize with that feeling. And I also agree that I had a whole new level of empathy and love for her as I saw
Yeah.
and I began to see the decisions that she made based on the circumstances that she had. And so it is so wonderful to it's hard when you look back and you think, man, I wish I could have this conversation with them right
I
now and tell
know.
them how much I appreciate them. I
Yeah.
wish I could do that. But I'm also very grateful for the lens of grace and love and to see them from a fresh place. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Oh, you're so welcome, Victoria. It's a joy to hear your story. And
Thank you.
I can't even wait. Like, I can't wait to hear how the muscle procedure goes that you're about to have. So we may have to have
The
you
physical
back on.
therapy,
Oh,
yeah.
yes, the physical therapy and see how that supports you and to
Yeah.
see what's next. So what's next for you as far as how you're going to make your impact in the world today? What's on your heart with that?
I have discovered a new medical breakthrough actually that's been helping me so much and with so many other people that uses phototherapy to help the body heal itself.
Okay.
And for anyone listening, follow me on Facebook, and it's really done wonders for the pain. It's even increased my stamina. I
Wow.
feel like I could go deadlifting again,
Wow.
and um, that's what's on my heart. And yes, empowering people and encouraging them, even just in the smallest ways.
Mm.
And health is my number one priority. Like we said, go to the depths of your health.
Mm.
Do it. Do all the things, meditation, eat right, whatever that looks like for you.
Right.
And,
Right.
read. And if you have a diagnosis, and please, parents, if you have kids that have scoliosis, first, be proactive and watch out to the doctors that you're listening to. Really educate yourself on how the body works,
Mm.
the muscles, and how it's going to work with a diagnosis and maybe with surgery too. And um, please be proactive. Be proactive for your own health.
Mhm. Right. Right. That's huge.
Yes.
We were called to be stewards over our bodies. Yeah,
Mhm.
and we are responsible. My doctor, Dr. Val, love, love, love her. And she says, and this is her fun quote. She says, 2 rules in life: trust nobody, and we're all going to die. Like, that's her 2 rules for life. And of course, she talks about it from the lens of making sure that you educate yourself, that you
Mhm.
understand what's going in your body, and that you understand how unique your body works. But
Mhm.
she's definitely taken me on that deep dive. And you get to a place, and I also want to say, to reiterate what you talked about, how it's your own health journey. Not everybody is going to understand it. Somebody may look at you and say, well, you look fit, you look wonderful. Why would you spend your energy on that? Because they don't understand that health is not just an appearance. It's
Yes.
so much more.
Yes.
Right. I had somebody, I'm working on a competition right now, and I posted my weight, and a couple of people were like, oh my God, that's so small. And I'm like, on TV, I look a lot bigger. I'm like 4'10". Okay. I know where I'm at,
Yes.
and so it's okay. And if somebody has their own opinions on stuff, it's through their lens. Let them
Yes.
have their own lens. And when they're ready for some lens cleaner, be there to help them out. Right.
Oh, I love that. Yes, get some lens cleaner.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so funny. Yes,
Mm.
and I love that you said it's not just appearance.
Yeah.
Though you do see a lot of it through appearance. You can tell by someone's skin, for example, if they're
Sure.
hydrated, how they're eating. And yes, as someone looking at you or I may think, oh, you don't look like there's anything going on. You look perfect.
Mm.
And it can take some openness
Mhm.
and some, just hold on, everyone has their thing, everyone has a story.
Right,
And
right.
I shared at a women's group and someone commented, "Thank you for sharing because looking at you, you would never think there's anything going on with you."
Mm.
And so it's so much more than appearance.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like you said, the internal.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, friends, I know you got tons of nuggets and inspiration from Victoria's journey, and I do hope that you will continue to follow her. Stay in the know with what she's doing, and I guarantee you that she is being researching all of the things that she's doing because it is a priority. As she said, that's her number one focus right now. Well, and as we mentioned, all of our stories matter. Every single one of our stories make a difference. And I know that today's story is helping somebody. And you, if you have a story on yourself and you say, I am ready to share my story with the world, we want to get to know you. We want to hear it and we want to give you a stage to share your story because your stories can do one or two things. They can either be the chains that hold you down or the keys to freedom. So let's go out and share your story. Thanks for watching.